I have had a very good look at the first 5 to 6 passages, but the last few passages I read very quickly, so I might not have gauged the best difficulty level or the nature of questions, but I still do have a fair idea of the kind of questions they have asked. Other than that, if you have any insights that you might want to add from your end, feel free to do that as well in the course of the session. So let's start with my few opinions, but before that, I feel that I'll let you all start because the groups are filled with comments from people. Uh, I'll only put one general remark before I give it to you to just discuss, and all of you are welcome to put in your views and opinions on what you thought about the exam, and then I'll also chip in and we'll see how the exam is gone. Now, my take first on GK is that it's absolutely absurd the way they have framed the GK. I do not know what kind of steroids they were on when they framed these GK questions. But it's also to be noted that the GK in the first half, this is master question paper, all right? So please be accordingly prepared to understand what I'm saying. The GK in the master question paper, I feel the first half of the question paper is absolutely difficult. I don't think that the GK they've asked is easy to prepare for because these questions are highly dependent on who is reading a newspaper in very in-depth. If you have been keeping up with the newspaper editorials from maybe the beginning of the May last year till this point, maybe you can attempt those questions. But other than that, it's very difficult to attempt the GK questions which are given in the first half of this paper. Very difficult questions, also very difficult to predict. And equally, I'm not able to see why these questions are even being asked. I'm not able to see the relevance or how a student can possibly even prepare for them. Which is why I think if in this paper the cutoff is going to be driven down, it's largely going to be driven down by GK questions. That is the only part or component in this paper which I feel can reasonably reduce the overall cutoff for the part A. In the second half of the paper, though, GK is slightly tricky, but it's still attemptable and it's doable GK. A lot of questions are from the static GK, but there are still questions that you can reasonably attempt. If you have a good static GK preparation, you can attempt those questions. And also if you can just, if you've been reading up the different resources, or if you've just, as you're growing up, if you've studied your and other important subjects, I think these are the kind of questions you can attempt from your own memory as well. So I think that the tricky part of the GK is largely the first half of the paper. The second half, I still feel that in some ways reflects an expected pattern of this paper. But I think for me, the session will be a lot more smoother if I can start hearing from you. So feel free to express yourself and whatever you feel about this exam. All of you are encouraged to speak now. Jay, we can start with you and then Shruti. Shruti?
Okay, I have a query. I think I don't know in Umeshi passage if you have read. It's one of the last passages in the master question booklet, and I think some of the answers they are pretty. I don't know according to me because मेरा एक के बाद एक गलत हो गया. So could be maybe there's some ambiguity. So especially the ones where that particular question where 71 question according to the master booklet and 68 and 66, especially 71.
I'll
And
keep a list of all the questions you want to figure for the challenging the answer key. So far, from my read of the question paper, I don't think there are any questions which you can challenge as such. But I'll take a note of all the questions that you want me to take a look at and tell you if they can be challenged or not. So I'll just keep a mental note of your question.
And I just wanted to ask you, in general, the passages were a bit tricky, or like, what is your opinion on the level of passages? The questions, actually, not passages.
Okay. I think let me just start with then pointing out my own reflections on the passages. So let's start with passage 1 in the master question paper. I thought the passage 1 is about moderate to slightly difficult in some parts. Overall gist of the passage I'm speaking here, I think the passage is easy to read, but it needs a very good eye for detail. That because there are two people speaking to each other, so it might take you some time to figure out who is speaking to whom and what position is the person taking as they're speaking to other person. So there can be a few doubts as to what they are exactly trying to speak to each other and what their individual position is. So it might take a few minutes to make a mental map of how this conversation is panning out between these two people. But other than that, I feel the passage is easy as it's flowing. So in terms of understanding the passage, it's not very difficult. It just might be difficult to figure out the flow of the passage as the conversation is happening between two people. I think the GK questions are just absolutely trash because I don't think they're easy at any manner. But again, I would call them difficult, but difficulty would also depend upon a question is being well framed. But I think they've just picked up random GK questions from anywhere. And I think questions are also easy in this, especially the LR questions and English questions. You may have to refer to a passage a few times to exactly figure out if you have correctly uh, understood the options or not. So you might have to go back to a passage few times. तो थोड़ा double reading हो सकता है first passage में. But I think other than that, the passage is just around moderate difficulty level. GK questions are making it slightly difficult. Passage 2 for me would again be somewhere around easy to moderate. And I think this passage can be done within 5 to 6 minutes. These are the kind of passages which I also pointed out a while ago as we were discussing that in your exam, there will be some passages which are easy to attempt. And these passages are ones where you can save time. Because generally, if you look at some passages, must have taken you a hell lot of time because they're also lengthy passages and also a little difficult to understand. So I think the passage 2 is one such passage where you could have saved time. It can be done in 5 to 6 minutes. GK, I agree, is again tricky in this passage, but in general, it's a very easy passage to attempt. And your logical reasoning and English questions are both on an easy side of the spectrum. So I think it's an easy passage to do. Passage 3, I felt again was somewhere around moderate difficulty level, not difficult as such, but around moderate difficulty level. It might require you some technical knowledge, primarily because I think they're discussing GST, syntax. So you must have some familiarity with these concepts. Syntax क्या होता है, क्यों लगता है, उसका purpose क्या है. Although passage does state it out very explicitly, everything that you need to know about syntax. But if you have a prior knowledge of it, I think you can attempt this passage a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently. तो थोड़ा सा टेक्निकल नॉलेज का एस्पेक्ट है इस पैसेज में, तो you might need some basic know-how of these concepts. But other than that, I think it's also a lengthy passage, I believe, compared to other ones, slightly lengthy. But only these two things are making it on a moderate difficulty level. Otherwise, the questions I believe are relatively easy to attempt. I think at best you might get one or two questions wrong, but other than that, I feel that it's a doable passage and it can be done in a reasonable amount of time. And the questions I believe are easy. It's just the passage which can get you a little bit confused, but the questions are on the easier side. Passage 5, I think, is very easy. I think of all the passages I have seen so far in the paper, passage 5 to me struck the easiest one. I think the GK, beginning from this passage onwards, I felt the GK is also easy to attempt.
You left out passage 4.
Okay, I'll come to that. Did I? Oh, okay. So I'll discuss passage 5 first, as I'm on it already. So LR is a little creative in this, but it's very simple. They might have asked you questions in a slightly creative manner, but they're easy questions to attempt. And I think it can be done within 5 to 6 minutes as well. And I think it's the first passage from where GK starts getting a little easy, something you can do. Passage 4 is again a fairly easy passage. GK is difficult, so I think we can shift it a little towards the moderate side. Questions are also simple, and I think it's a doable passage within 5 to 6 minutes. So my take is that from passage 4 and passage 5, they tend to, both of these passages are easier passages in comparison to other ones, and they can save you some time, especially the GK factor is making them a little more easier because from here onwards, I think you can start attempting the GK questions. Before that, I felt that you might have to just take a blind guess. Passage 6 is moderate to slightly difficult, primarily because the language of the passage is very analytical. So if you have read a little literature about caste, about history, it may be fairly easy for you to comprehend. But if you're not exposed to such literary readings, the language can appear to be a little bit analytical language. So in that sense, the passage can vary a little towards the moderate side, but the GK in this is also again easy. And I'm saying easy because these are the questions which you can expect, especially the question in this is given about who made a statement against Sanatan Dharma. So these are the statements which you can easily trace if you have been following popular news and all these events. Passage 7, again, I feel that it's on the easier side, easy GK and easy questions. Passage 8, easy to slightly moderate, because I think, again, in this LR section can be fairly tricky for some of you. I'm not sure if this is the experience for everyone, but I think in the passage 8, the only thing which can make it slightly tricky is that the LR section is asking you some questions which might not be easy to attempt for some people. But other than that, I think GK in this is moderate, not too difficult, not too easy. It will depend upon how well your preparation is. So I feel that somewhere the GK is moderate in the passage 8. So this is my take of all the passages. Of course, I've only given you a very broad overview of these passages. If you want to discuss it more in detail, we can do that as well. But that's my broad overview of how I've understood these passages. So before you ask me, what would be a probable cutoff? I by no means can be an expert, but let me give you some simple breakdown. Last year, I have done some small research. Last year, I remember and this is for a non-reserved and non-Karnataka female. She scored around 52 in part A and she qualified her part A. So my guess is that last year the cutoff was around 50 to 51, somewhere around that mark. If and I'm speaking about a general male or a female category person to whom no reservation category applies and does not come from Karnataka as well. So no horizontal reservation applies as well. So the cutoff last year was around 50-ish, around 50 to 52. Let's take that mark. This year, I think GK is certainly more difficult compared to the last year, especially I think the first half of the question paper, GK is definitely not an easy one. If you are good with calculated guess, you can certainly attempt many of the GK questions. But other than that, it's not a kind of a GK which you can certainly prepare for or something you can expect to even come in the exam. But of course, I do think that the GK can be attempted by a good calculated guess if you are good at that. I think some of the students who have scored well probably have taken good guess with the GK questions. So that's my GK take. English questions are also slightly more difficult than the last time. They have gotten a little bit more creative with asking you the English questions, and LR as well. In LR, I feel that the questions are framed in a manner that you can feel them a bit challenging, but the options are easy. So your LR questions can be a little difficult to understand, but the options are then relatively easy. So if you are following up with the passage well, then you can attempt them. So my take on LR would be that it's somewhere around the same level as the last year, maybe a marginal difficulty difference. Maybe this year you can say that it was marginally a little more difficult than the last year, but I don't see a very significant difference between the LR of this year and the last year because the options make up for the difficulty level of the questions. Options are very easy to distinguish and also attempt. So my guess would be same, only that the cutoff this year maybe would be around 50 only, 50 and above, but there is a good chance that it can dip a little below 50. So somewhere around 47 to 50 is a probable mark where the cutoff can fall. But my guess would be that the cutoff should go around and around 50 to 51. This is for general category only I'm speaking at the moment. There is a good chance that it might just on a slightly off chance that it might fall a little below 50. So 49 or 48 is a possible chance. This is for the part A. But given that it's difficult to predict, I would still say that if you're scoring 50 and above, I think you have a good chance of clearing the cutoff. Of course, if you'll ask me what is the safe score, I'll always say that anything above 53 is a safe score. If you're scoring above 53, I think you have a above 90% chance of having your part A checked And if you're scoring about 50 to 53, you can be comfortable that you'll clear the cutoff. But again, it's an unpredictable factor. But I do feel that if you're scoring 50 and above, you will clear the cutoff for the part A of this question paper. And if you're scoring between 45 to 50, you might have to keep your fingers crossed, in the sense that there is a chance. You should not lose your hopes that what if our paper don't get checked, or that it's not happening for us. There is certainly a chance for you as well, but I do feel that 45 to 50 is still a bet, but there's a very good chance that the cutoff may fall below 50 this year. Okay, now in the poll, about 20 people are getting 60. Which poll is this? Is this our poll that we took on the, what do you call it, the Telegram channel, or is it some other poll that you've seen? It's on the main channel. Never trust those polls. Never. My personal story is this. When I gave this paper, I personally was not the brightest star when it came to attempting part A. I only scored 52 in my own part A when I gave this paper. And I went to this poll that was conducted by one of the famous uh, coaching providers on their YouTube channel. And I think on that poll, there were around 1,000 people who polled. And out of 1,000 people, about 400 people were scoring above 60. At that moment, I of course lost all the hopes that I'll be clearing this exam, because I mean there are 60 plus scores of around 400 people, and 55 to 60 was around 700 people. So don't trust these polls. Because a lot of those people are not even attempting, or most of them might not have even given the exam. And some of them who gave the exam or might not have scored well, they'll spam the polls. Don't go by them. Polls are mostly just to maybe get a first hand idea of how the competition is panned out, but especially the open ones that happen on YouTube channels, or the open Telegram channels like the one which we have around 1100 members. They are not very trustworthy. Take them with a pinch of salt, because I personally don't trust them as much. My own experience was very bad. For 1 month I was almost in my own depression, because I thought अब तो नहीं हो रहा clear, क्योंकि उसके हिसाब से तो कट ऑफ 57 जा रही थी. Don't trust them. People spam big time on these polls. Okay, so sorry for that small detour, but just to give you an idea, don't go with these polls. Do check what other coaching institutes have predicted as their cutoff, which come from a source of authority. You can trust them, but don't trust the polls that they're hosting. They're absolutely unreliable as far as my personal experience goes. Okay, this is my understanding of party. Let's have a brief discussion now. In the order, first Jay, then Shruti, then Nandika, then Ayush, Carnelia, and Jayant. Just remember. So starting with Jay.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't speak last time. But, for example, the passage on goods and services, like I found it pretty tough in the sense that it was technical and I don't come from a commerce background. And then the options were along the lines of none of the above, all of the above, both A and B. So there were multiple of them. So I've lost close to three or almost three questions. I've marked them incorrect in that passage itself. And then there were some minor hiccups in understanding the passage on the daughter and mother relationship. Like
This
one
is
of
which passage?
it, the daughter and mother one. I don't remember.
It's
I,
the amazing one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's the last one.
yeah,
last.
yeah, the last one. So, like for example, what can you infer about the relation between the daughter and the mother? So I scored that incorrect as well because I couldn't very clearly make out. I thought that maybe it was around A because I thought that she just buzzed into a room. Her daughter is away for 5 years, and so I don't know. No, I marked C because I thought that
Even
through her
I marked
artifacts.
C.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
I don't
did.
know
Even
that
I
that
won't
was,
see.
I marked C
It's a
and
very ambiguous question. I don't think there can be a very clear-cut objective answer to that question.
yeah because
This is which question number?
it's
The
67
last passage, the 66 to 75.
and
Yeah, I
question
know the
number is 67.
67. All right. I feel that it's always the case. The one thing I leave out, people have the most out on that only. My fault. Uh, give Either you give me 5 minutes, because many of you seem to have some doubts on this passage. So I'll take a good look at it.
Yeah, if you can, and if since you started with the first passage, Like
Yes.
I know it's very pinpoint doubt, but I had a, question in the question number two. I had a doubt in question number two.
Yeah.
So there's
I'm
this
on that.
back and forth between Richard and Rubakov, and so why is it that Richard thinks that Rubashov is accusing him of playing into the hands of enemy? And so for me personally, I thought options C and D were pretty close to each other, but I couldn't. Maybe of course I'm wrong because there's no objection to the answer key given. But there were these questions which took a lot of time. For example, when I gave the mocks and I could easily clear them in 65, 70 minutes. These passages took me, and I won't lie, it took me around 80 minutes. So I was left only with 70 minutes for attempting part B. And I felt it very lengthy because in part B as well, half of the passage, for example, if you consider the first passage, take half of it, and half of it was the passage for or the legal of part B. And there were six such questions. So it took me a lot of time. I couldn't
We'll
complete
come
it.
to part B in a little bit. So for I'll discuss that as well, because for part B, I'm totally blinded. I do not know the kind of questions they've asked you. So we'll come
Okay.
to part B in a short while.
Yeah. So for part A, my like parting thing is it took me more time than what it usually took me in mocks.
I understand. I also think that it could be because, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it could be because the questions are a little bit more creatively framed here. They will require you to go back to a passage and confirm that if you've gotten the question right or not.
Exactly.
Even
Exactly.
as we were framing the mocks, I think the questions were a little more direct in the mocks compared to the actual question paper, in which I feel that the questions are not that directly for worded. You may have to really check, and especially I think for the logical reasoning section, I think that they have gone a little bit on a difficult level to make these questions. At least the framing of the questions is not that easy to understand on the first go.
Yeah. Yeah. The GST passage was a route for me. I just messed it up big time.
I think passages are fairly very analytical this time, because last time, if I remember correctly, the passages were very descriptive. They're only describing something. कोई कहानी चल रही है, वो बस समझा रहे हैं. But this
Yeah.
time around, I think passages have very analytical detail. Every single paragraph in the passage is conveying a lot of information. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
informational overload also this time.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah. Thank you.
I think even in the essay, it was like that only. It was not at all very generic. It was very pinpointed that you have to
It
argue
was.
for a certain point.
Um, who do we have? Whoever likes. Please unmute yourself and
Yeah,
speak.
I'll first, actually, I have some background in, actually, I'm from a commerce background. So the GST one was easy for me. Like you said, the basic knowledge should help, but I still messed up question number 24. That syntax is supposed to be regressive in nature. That's what I marked. But then they say syntax is regressive and ABC, everything is right. That's why I marked D, because of my prior knowledge of taxation, because the syntax is supposed to be regressive, and that's what the main aim is. But still, I got it wrong because they are saying, I think the option is A. But in the passage, obviously, they didn't mention about regressiveness, but gambling and all do indicate, no, that
I
it
think
is.
you're getting it wrong, even though I also marked it wrongly because of the time crunch. But regressive does not mean in that sense. It means that you're affecting the higher income strata of the population. In that sense,
Okay.
taxation is called progressive and regressive. तो
Uh-huh.
इस इसमें कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है कि रिग्रेसिव होना ही चाहिए उसने बोला कि बस हार्मफुल उसके ऊपर लगना
Oh,
चाहिए.
I think she realizes that why she got it wrong. It's just that the prior knowledge might have played a part in.
The prior knowledge
Yeah,
has kind of affected
I
the
think they
question.
understood why they've gotten it wrong. No, I think it's a double-edged sword like that. Sometimes
Mm.
having prior knowledge can cloud your judgment a little bit.
And you have to read, I think you'll read 6. I also have doubt in 38 question.
Yes.
38 as per, I don't know where is it. 38th question.
Which of the following is true with more this?
Yeah. It's very analytical.
It is. I think the point is that where your vote will value the most. Maybe you need a little bit of maths, very slight pinch of maths, but when will your vote have the most value in these four options is effectively what you need to see. And I think if there are fewer voters per constituency, मानो कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी नॉर्थ इंडिया में 10 वोटर्स हैं, ठीक है, और तुम उनमें से एक हो, यू आर वन अमंग्स दोस पीपल, and if you cast your vote, it has a certain value. But let's say in southern India, only 5 people are in that same constituency. So your vote will definitely carry more value, right? Because amongst those 5 people, you are one amongst a lesser bunch of people. So your vote's value automatically increases, as opposed to 10 people, in which your vote value might not be as much, if that's clear to you.
Yeah, there's this line in the passage where it is said about representation. Wait. She'll have greater political representation and more impact on elections as a voter than those peers do. So why can't it be B? Because there are more voters, and is it because the logic I used was that they are. This is a very weird passage though. So they are more educated. They'll tend to make voter IDs, and also they'll vote more. That's what I inferred from
the value of your vote more does not mean that qualitatively कि किसके लिए तुम वोट कर रहे हो इसीलिए तुम्हारी वोट की वैल्यू ज्यादा है, not in that terms. The value of your vote is more because of population wise you're lesser, that's why your value of the vote is more.
Oh, I thought I took it with voter turnout. It's
No.
not related to that.
No. It's related to how many people are there who are possibly going to cast their vote from that constituency. अगर ज्यादा लोग होंगे तो तुम्हारा वैल्यू कम होगा ना. अगर इस सेशन में 30 लोग बोल रहे हैं और उनमें से आप एक हो, तो आपका whatever you're speaking may not have the same value. But if it's just you and me talking to each other, of course I'll place a higher opinion to your or a higher value to your opinion. It's, I think, that kind of a question.
This was confusing, and I have doubts in that Umeshi passage, and I scored actually 45, like exactly. So, like, yeah, okay. Okay, that's it.
Please, accordingly, if you're, let's say, and I think in this case, I'm only going to give you a ballpark figure depending on male, non-reserved category, no horizontal reservation. So I think as per your different categories, if any horizontal reservation applies to you, maybe -2, 3, not more than that. And if any vertical reservation applies to you, then -5, 10 you can take from the cutoff. So I think for SC, the cutoff could be around 40ish. For ST, the cutoff could be a little below that. So in that way, you need to accordingly -5 to 10. That will go for the cutoff if you are from a vertical category. For OBC, I think it'll only go down by -5 or -6, not more than that.
Nah, only I think there's this women reservation, I think, no? Horizontal one that will only apply, I think. For general female. I don't even
Generally, the thing is also that as in students qualify, we don't ask them what was your
obviously,
category. We don't ask them. So we generally don't have any data as well. So we only take a ballpark figure that if the general is like, let's say 50, then SC may be somewhere around 40, 41. So as a policy, we usually don't ask students like if you were in a category, unless they personally by their own will want to tell, we don't ask anyone. Okay, other people.
Hi, I just wanted to have like just one little clarification. I personally haven't had the chance to go through the NLU website. So I just wanted to clear out that the drive link that Anish has sent on the group,
Sorry?
is that
Yes. Your voice went off, I believe. I can't hear you. Nandika, in case you're speaking something, I'm not able to hear you here. So for the time being, somebody else, if you want to ask something. Or is it my own internet?
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so just one thing that wouldn't go too much into the personals of it, but I scored about 55, exactly 55, and only 3 LR questions were wrong. Everything else was GK. All of it was GK. So about 13 questions I got wrong in GK, and LR were 3. Out of those 3, the 2 like major ones are from question 66 and question 68, which are again from the this passage that we keep bringing up over and over. And then there's question 24, which is the GST syntax question. Right. So, that being said, the only thing that I did want to address was that obviously, if we could like go through those questions, because a lot of us have a problem, otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned it. And secondly, that actually you people were very uh, appropriate and right and accurate in assessing the level of the paper, especially for LR, because I was scoring about 45 in all of my mocks. And I was doing badly in GK because I'm not good at GK. But I got exactly 55, which is exactly the 10 mark ballpark that you told us कि हमारा increase आएगा. So nothing, मतलब, it's just something that you can be assured, like rest assured about, that you've gotten the more accurate predictions.
That's I think, yeah, that's a general prediction. I think it works, and I'm happy it worked for you. Okay, now we have in the order Jayant, Sanya, and Ashmita. I think it would be a little wise if I read that passage quickly, and as I'm done with it, I'll take questions from three of you, Jayant, Sanya, and Ashmita. So just give me a few minutes. In the meanwhile, feel free to discuss amongst yourself if something you
Hemant,
feel is
just
important.
before you go ahead with it, I just wanted to clarify one thing. We are discussing the master question bank, which has been shared by
Yes,
Anish in the
yes,
group, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
That's
so
correct.
much.
Feel free to discuss amongst yourself if there is something, and give me just like 5 to 7 minutes.
If anybody could help me in like, letting me know that how we can assess our performance, because I do have the OMR response sheet with me, but I'm just a little confused with the sets that they have mentioned. So,
Yes.
Yeah, so
Uh,
okay. You want to speak,
oh,
you
okay.
can.
Thank.
yeah, good. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Like it's just for in general also, Shruti, you also help. But like the way I went about it was that
mm-hmm,
I opened an Excel. Okay. I
right.
copied numbers 1 to 7, 1 to 75. ठीक है. Then I copied the master key के answers. So
Okay,
A B B C D A ऐसे करके 75 तक. Then in the third column I copied जो number corresponding है मेरे set का. तो for example I was in set B. So for example, if one is 66 in my set, so it goes 66, 68, 69, then 1, 2, 3, 4, then 21, 22, ऐसे करके. So in the middle, you have the right answers. ठीक है? Then what I did was that I went through my OMR. I started checking. कि अच्छा ठीक है, 66 के सामने A है. Okay, have I gotten it right? Have I gotten it wrong? And then I started like coloring them in. So it was like green, 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 red, 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 green, red, green, red. And then
right,
I calculated the entire thing. So I did not use a lot of Excel knowledge because like I suck at Excel, but this is like the basic thing that I did that you can also do. It'll take you
right,
like it should not take you that long.
right. That's a great suggestion. And also, like, if by chance, because I missed out on reading what set I'm in and what kind of set question paper I
Uh,
was provided with, so where can
there's
I refer that to?
no, there are like multiple question papers of the same set. For example, the master key set there's. Then next you'll scroll down. There, then you'll get your set. For example, अगर तुम्हारे passage में the first passage is about the Umeshi one, then your
Mm-hmm.
set should be set B. Like if you
My
scroll down,
first passage was the GST one. So if any one of you had the same, can you let me know the
It's set
set?
C.
It's at C. Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
If I may ask, like, if any of you remember, how many people in your room at the center could actually complete it? Because I saw in my room and there was only one other candidate who could actually complete the paper.
To be honest, in my room also there were like barely 3 or 4 people who were like able to finish the paper.
My center was in Delhi, that Deen Dayal Upadhyay College, and
Same. I was also
yeah,
in
and
DDU.
whoever
Same.
in
I
the
was
Sub
also
DDU
there.
is the
whoever
same.
in so whoever in the
We were all
center after
together.
coming out of the exam hall said ki I completed my paper, he was being treated as a celebrity. Trust me, like people are like, "Ki, who is this guy and where did he come from?" But in my hall, and surprisingly in my room, like there was only 40% attendance. Like I was presuming that given the cost of the form, people wouldn't even skip this exam, but like there were not many people. And sadly, because of that, the examiner was able to collect copies so quickly that the I suffered in essay. Like I could have
Same.
written paragraph, but there were only
We
Yeah.
four or
did
five
not,
people.
I have a question. Ki, when you say that people weren't able to finish their papers, do you mean obviously you don't know personally what happened with whom, but then do you think like people were able to like finish their final answer by like just quickly scribbling through it, or do you think people left questions also? Because I personally, I had 3 minutes, exactly 3 minutes, and I had two 10 markers left
Hmm.
because I wrote one 10 marker, then I wrote my essay. Then I went back to the questions and I realized I have exactly precisely 5 minutes per answer. And it takes me a while to, because these questions weren't as direct, right? These were a tad bit more technical compared to our mocks. So, so I
I personally saw 2 3 people who had 2 3 pages of essay left, and
So
me
I
too.
also
दो लोगों
had
का
Like
एक
I
10
left
mark का
one
रहेगा
one
था.
logical reasoning question completely because I there was a point of time when I had to make a choice whether to do an essay or legal reasoning question.
Same. And
But
then
because yeah, and I made a choice of leaving the LR question because first you have to read the question and then decode it and then come up with the points that too in a logical manner, which is rather compared to that writing essay is way too easy because at least you know something about it.
Even
That's
I was able to write only 3 pages for essay.
uh,
that's a good thing. Don't
So
that's
I
forget.
everyone
very
has
actually
three
true.
pages,
disagree.
right?
I think writing for the essay was a bit more difficult because वो लोग general चीजें नहीं मांग रहे हैं. अगर transgender भी
It was
पूछा
very
तो
specific because even
you
I
have
had
to
to like
have a
read the
particular
Yeah,
line
true,
of
true.
argumentation to
Absolutely right.
really.
state.
But in my case, I had prepared that climate wala thing very well. So I had
Yeah,
arguments.
but the thing with that one is कि most people did that. So matlab, I think the
But that
arguments
happens in
cannot be
essay.
that
That's
unique.
why that is why also.
I actually have a question for you guys.
Hmm.
So what happened in my exam center, like in my class, was we were not allowed to fill in the details on the OMR sheet and the
Yeah,
question
same.
sled
Same.
before our exam began,
It
due
was
to which
the
we
norm
ended up
everywhere.
losing.
It was
Yeah,
the
we
norm.
we ended up losing good 10-15 minutes, which is like so valuable when
I
it comes
also
to
believe
It was the
NLSAT.
same
if the
everywhere.
exam is of
Same, yeah, it
Yeah,
two
I
was.
hours
mean,
and
the
20 minutes
entire
only, I
class
think we
was
should deduct
complaining
10
about
minutes.
it. Yeah, the
Uh,
invigilator was literally snatching papers from the
Yeah, yeah.
students. So I just
in
wanted to ask if it was the case with all of you, because then it would, I think, create a level playing field. But
Ashwin,
Yeah,
if
it's
not, then
Yeah, it was same for
this
everyone
time
this
it
else.
was
thing was
precisely
clarified in
mentioned
the
in
FAQ.
the
This
instruction
thing
note.
was already clarified in the FAQs and the admit card instructions. So this is
yeah,
same for everyone.
yeah.
And
Till
one thing I want
10
it
a.m.,
was
no one was
mentioned
allowed
that
to open
the
their sheets. It was till 10 a.m. You're not supposed to touch it. Only after 10 a.m. you
Hmm.
can open the
True, true.
plastic cover and then open the
Yeah,
sheet.
it took like 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes were gone, and then we had to, and then that's maybe the part reason why my first passage the answers were mostly incorrect because it took me a while to even figure it out what is happening.
and it took at least 10 minutes for everybody to fill the OMR, right?
To
it
see that
took
if it's
proper
correct or
ten
not.
fifteen minutes
Uh,
because
I
there was
got like my
attendance
third.
sheet as well and
Yeah, yeah.
everything.
And
So
even
it
that
took good
invigilator
10-15
wasted
minutes.
2 3 minutes while doing
Yeah,
the
yeah, the
exactly.
signature and
signing and
all.
all
My
everywhere.
20 30 minutes also got wasted like that only.
And
And
this
it
one
messes up
also
with your
happens.
brain a lot. Like your whole
Mm,
exam is so much dependent on time. I mean,
right.
this exam, iska सबसे important part is time management. And we have all practiced proper mocks with 2.5 hours ke timers on our phones. So I think it disturbed the complete.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, it
my
kind
class,
of
all the
messed my
students of
brain.
my
I
class were
agree.
crying about it.
Did you guys also feel that in the legal reasoning questions, there was not much room for कि आप दोनों side से कर सकते हो? It was pretty much one sided only कि
True,
What
One-sided,
true,
yes.
very
logically
true.
in
लग
those
रहा है कि यहीं
questions,
से करना है.
what approach I took was I gave one argument and one counter argument almost in every question. That
That's what
helped.
Yeah,
I
even I bigoted the argument.
One thing I want to ask is like, did you guys all like found part A fairly lengthy? Because I got, I think,
yeah.
barely 1 hour for part B, where I was able to do 5 questions like at mock level, and one question I had to do like very quickly, and I wrote essay in like barely 6 7 minutes. So is it the same for everybody else, or like
Yeah, yeah.
somebody was able to finish
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
very
man.
quickly?
Discounting
It's the same for
the
everyone.
current affairs or the GK section, even after discounting that, it took around 70 minutes, I think,
Yeah, exactly.
70 75 minutes, I
Because
And bro,
guess.
I
like for
got very
example,
lucky with
the
the GK
Unmeshi
thing.
Same,
wala
I
thing,
got
I
my
completed in
90%
75
GK
minutes.
correct.
like for the that question Unmeshi passage and a mother's relationship, is Hemant
That
back?
was very difficult for some. Not the passage, but the questions were difficult. Like the some options seemed really close. So I was not able to pinpoint which option could be correct and which option should I eliminate. That's what I felt about that passage.
Agreed, agreed.
So is there anybody here who like is very satisfied with the attempt of part B?
No.
No, no, no.
No, no.
Okay.
Not even part A actually, because I took so much time, and then there are a lot of errors that I have committed.
Kinda relieved. I was very worried that I almost left my
I was
life
just
as
thinking there was this guy on Telegram जो बोल रहा था कि 65 आया and that too in category. I was like UR का एक और गया.
But
वैसे
I
ही
have
20
a
सीटें हैं यार,
question.
20-25 भी नहीं है शायद.
I have a question that do you think people will challenge any of the questions, because I
No,
don't
no,
see
no.
much room for it.
They're also asking 1,000 for it, no?
Yeah,
There is
exactly.
anything barely
Pay for-
challengeable, I think. It's
But I don't
very
think
good sense.
there's going to be any challenge. I
Yeah.
think
Not much room.
short on. Like, everything is right on their part. The answers are right.
Retrospective answers, right?
Okay, I think I've done reading up with the passage 8. So I'll start with one doubt I remember from Jay. It's question 66, right? 66 or 67?
Is
67.
Yeah, it was 67.
66 also.
And
And
68 also, please.
okay, 66, 67, 68, and Shruti also had 71, right?
71, yeah.
Okay. 66 is an answer that you attempt. If you remember, back in the 10th and 9th class, we had those small poetries that they were giving, and where we had to find out the hidden meaning, where they would give an indirect reference and you had to relate it to somehow something which is happening in your own real life. My guess would also be that in this, I think the answer is that the garbage symbolizes Umesh's relationship with her environment, which she is desperate to escape. Option B, but I think it's also close to this option, which is the garbage dump was, yeah, option A, I believe. Is this the confusion between option A and option B?
I have confusion between B and C.
C, the garbage dump
Yeah.
represents failure of country. It would be not, because in nowhere in the passage they're trying to draw a parallel between the garbage dump and the general civic condition of that country. Because to make option C as an inference, we might need some indication from the passage that the author is trying to draw a parallel between saying that there is a large garbage truck outside my house and it's the failure of authorities to collect that, which in turn indicates a larger systemic failure of the nation. But the author is not drawing this parallel to that extent. If you will read the passage, the author is only drawing this limited example of the garbage truck to display that this woman just quickly goes up to her daughter's room or the second floor or whichever floor she's going to right after her husband leaves to escape that the smell of that garbage truck. Now that's the limited knowledge we've been given in the passage, that her only purpose to go to the first or second floor is to escape this smell that is coming from the garbage truck. We do not know now more than that what could be some other reason why she's doing that, and that's what the passage or the question is asking you. What could be a possible reason or a symbol that this is signifying as to why she's going up on the first or the second floor? I do not think at any time she is generally tired with the general condition of her country. Do you think that anywhere in the passage it's signifying in some way, directly or indirectly, that it's correlated to the general state of her country's condition?
But she wants to escape. Like, she is looking for people, looking for the grooms who are settled outside. And she wants to escape with her daughter, like emigrate from the. If you know what I mean, that's why I inferred that it could be C.
Of
Because-
course, that's
Huh.
escape is there in both options. Option B also says that it symbolizes her relationship with her environment, which is desperate to escape. Environment, therefore, is a lot more generic term. It does not directly refer to any one certain cause as to why she wants to escape. Because even in the passage, we do not know exactly. We know that she wants to escape. She is not happy in the environment or the condition she is in, but we do not know the exact reason for why she wants to escape. Option C makes, I believe, an unfounded assumption that she wants to escape because she does not like the general state of conditions in her country. Imagine this: if I insert an option in 66 that the garbage truck represented the failure of her husband to give her a better house where there is not such bad smell, would you take that? I'm asking. It's not just a rhetorical question.
No, not really.
I think generally,
I would not.
But then the insinuation there in the passage then becomes, that it's a question about immigration. And also in the beginning, there is a line which basically states that she's speaking of a treachery. Okay. Now, who is this treachery to? It is to the country, right? It's not to her husband, it is not to her family. But
Particularly, how? In which this treachery is mentioned in which passage?
the
One
first
First
paragraph,
paragraph.
para.
right? Smell down the road, it was abomination, the gigantic perfumer necessitated perfume, and infortune that necessitated a perfume and treachery. It is not that clear that this treachery is exactly being referred to the general state of conditions in a country. It's difficult to make that assumption, at least my first reading of it. If I were to think more and more about it, maybe I'll try to draw up a connection. But if I were to only take my understanding on the first glance of these words, what they can possibly mean, I would not equate treachery with her disdain towards her living conditions in her country.
Also, there's in the second line, it's written कि दो reasons हैं, a sordid little secret coiled inside her chest. So that does refer कि वो immigration वाले aspect से सोच रही है.
Immigration is there in the both options. That's what I said.
I think Hemant, we can just small point here. Even I was confused in these two options, but I think the only like credible way of reaching the right answer was the intensity. Like which of the both options is more intense about her going away from such condition, right? So the option, because it's like in both the option it says she wants to move away from the dirt, from the garbage, but the option which is depicting that intensity a bit more than the other, relatively more than the other, which is like will land up us on the more accurate option, I guess.
I don't think you should go with intensity here because, I mean, I'm assuming you're hinting towards option C, right?
No, my answer is correct in this part
Okay.
because yeah.
My
So
Yeah,
reason,
me too.
I would, it's good that you've gotten it right, but my reason would slightly differ from you in terms of analysis as to why I would choose B. My reason would be that C just assumes something which is not there in the passage, or at least has not been flagged out in the passage as explicitly. I'll have to assume something which is not there in the passage.
But in the first passage, it is mentioned that about municipal.
But I think the best answer choose करना है और इस पूरे passage का एक context है कि वो उससे relate करिए. The B should be the best answer.
In her daughter's room, but through her artifact, garbage represents the failure of her country. It's a much bigger failure than just a municipal corporation leaving a garbage truck outside your home.
All right, all right.
I think they're referring to Sri Lanka here, right? If I'm correct. So it certainly needs to show that at a very large level, the country has failed her. I just think that if you are drawing a conclusion, the line is a bit too long in option C, as per my understanding. Okay, question 67 now. What does the passage indicate about Umeshi's relationship with her daughter? I would approach this question from an elimination method first, because I think the relationship with both of them has been at least represented in the passage through a lot of indirect cues. It's not very explicit as to how or what kind of relationship they share. It's mostly based on how she's entering her room and how she's associating with different artifacts and objects in her room. And depending upon her association with them, we have to make an inference of what kind of relationship she has with her daughter. Option A says Umeshi and her daughter share no secrets. It seems to me it's unlikely because if she knew or if there were no secrets, she would probably know that her daughter is looking for grooms, right? Umeshi is keenly aware of her daughter's preferences reflected in how she is meticulous. Option B is also a rewording of option A because if she was very well aware of her daughter's preferences, once again, she would know that her daughter is looking for a certain kind of groom or is looking to move out of the country or something of those lines, or that she's even looking for some grooms on some online website. So I think option B is just reworded option A with just a few extra words, but in essence, it's similar to option A. Option C, the daughter's room is described around her own absence. The daughter's room is described around her own absence. Okay, I don't know what that means. But through her artifacts, reflecting strained relation between mother and daughter. Possibly correct. I'll take that as an option which I believe is the closer one, due to which you're confused. Umesh, and option D is saying Umeshi is unfamiliar of her daughter's taste and personality, reflected in her indifference to the books and posters in her room. daughter's room is around her own absence, but through her artifacts reflecting. Now, I think option C, and this is me building my logic based on the fact that I already know the answer. I could have taken option C as well if I were in your place. I would say that there are very few indicators in the passage which show that they actually have a strained relationship. Is there any?
No, not
I,
really.
I did
None
think
actually.
about it because it does say that, little had been touched in the 5 years since the girl left for college. And then the second time it says that there were Umanga's idols, all women whose name eternally escaped Umeshi, no matter. No matter. And so I did not think that she was, very interested, or they had something, how do I say? They did not have a very cordial relationship as such, and things are kept as it is. She's just sneaking into it and trying to get what she wants.
But also, I
Even
think
I
the
had the same
father-
reasoning, but I thought कि जो D है option, it's too direct. तो ये क्यों होगा? So I just eliminated D.
No, like D could is the option because she doesn't care about Umeshi's the posters on the wall and all. It's like she's very indifferent to it. Like the mother enters her room, she doesn't even take a look at her room. And
Um, but I think option D, I think the problem with that is it's very extreme because it tells that Umeshi is unfamiliar but that's not the case. It's just that she can't remember by the virtue of the fact that she can't remember. There's no reason given for why she can't remember the names of people on the posters. But also, I think the only way by which they've described Umeshi and like the mother's relationship is through artifacts, like the computer, the posters, etc. There's no mention whatsoever of them like even talking. So I think it's through her the absence I is the only inference that was possible for me.
I also think that both of them are close, but I have to agree with Shruti's reasoning on this. You go to para 3 and go to the second last line and start reading from the point. Wooden shelves still sinking under the weight of so many books, walls still papered with magazines, cutouts of Umanga's ideals. Now, important part starts. All women whose names eternally escaped Umeshi, no matter. She had only eyes for laptop. The statement tells that she did not fully understand her daughter's preferences in some manner, which means she grew a indifferent attitude towards those objects. Strained, as per me, and let's say these are two ways of describing their relationship. One is that their relationship is strained, which would imply that they had some sort of difference between each other. They had some sort of hostility or animosity between each other. That is what amounts to a strained relationship. The passage, or if there is any excerpt in the passage, if you can uh, direct me towards that, where it's given that they had some sort of hostility or animosity between them. Because my reading is that the Umeshi did not fully understand her daughter, or that she did not have a good idea or understanding of her daughter's preferences, or that she did not understand the lifestyle of her daughter, which means that there was a sense of indifference towards her daughter's preference and choices. Strain would mean that they had some active hostility between each other, something that would represent that they did not get along as good. I do not find any evidence in the passage which would indicate such a high degree of hostility between their relationship.
But the thing is this that the only way by which they describe the relationship is through the artifacts. Like that's the only thing that is given. So isn't that also something that somebody would credit because the options again are pretty close, but the only way by which they describe the relationship is through her absence and through the artifacts.
But how does the absence in any way indicate that they did not share a relationship which was healthy, or the relationship which, or at least vice versa? Sorry, conversely, it indicates that the relationship had some sort of sourness.
No, it doesn't actually. I kept
Can I
going
add
back
something?
to paragraph 3 again and again. I went over thrice for it, but ultimately I marked C and I got it incorrect. So I don't know.
But
I can
can I
understand.
add
Same here.
something? I have something to add. So basically, what the one thing that I did notice in this was that, for example, in question 66, which I got wrong, uh, your internal gut instinct tells you that obviously let's just look at the key components of the question, which are that okay, daughter's room is described around her own absence, but through artifacts, straining reflecting strained relationships. Again, that is a form of reasoning, but that is 3 steps away from the first thing that you'll think. What's the first thing that you'll think? The first thing is directly mentioned in the passage, that the mother has looked at all of the posters, the mother has looked at all of the artifacts, and the mother does not seem to recognize them because perhaps she belongs to another generation. She's not as educated as a daughter. She's not have had the same access, right? And so she does not quite understand the way her daughter thinks, but she is indifferent towards it. She only has one goal in her mind, which is ki chalo, daughter has gone to study, now let me find a suitable match for her and let me also leave the country. So here there is indifference, which might also strain relationships, obviously, if we don't feel understood by our parents, right? But then that is a third step in my thought process of their relationship. But my first step would always be that the mother simply does not care, and the first step then becomes your answer, I think, because that's what happened with 66 also. I mean, that's the way I see it.
I'm sorry.
In retrospect, okay.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I feel that many of us did this wrong because question 66 was quite of an interpretative type. So we were already in the bent of mind that I simply discarded D. कि यार ये तो it's too direct, it's too easy to be true.
I would agree that in some ways option 67 is not as interpretative, but also C and D are close. I think someone else might prefer option C. But
Yeah, because just last bit from my side, I thought that she's ravaging through her daughter's things in her absence meant that, I assumed, again, it's an assumption, that maybe a daughter didn't want her her mother to go through those things, go through her things. And that's why I thought maybe she has to clandestinely, go up and check. And that's why I don't know.
But then you can also equally interpret this as her going into her daughter's room as a way of, maybe, I don't know, reminiscing her daughter's days when she used to live in that room, because now it's been about a few years that she went out. So maybe she's going in her room as a way of living through her daughter's memories. I think,
No,
and
n-
I will say
no,
that
But
neither of our interpretations is correct, because passage doesn't say anything on it as to why she's gone into her room.
no.
she's
But
I
gone
think
into
it
her room
has said. It
just
says
for
that
the PC.
one by one,
So,
Carnelia, and then I don't know your name. You just say T.
uh, yeah, she's gone in. It's very clearly mentioned in the passage that she's gone into the room A. Things are untouched. What does that mean? That she does not necessarily rummage around a lot. She does not necessarily move a lot of things. B, she goes in just for the PC. There's a PC there, and she wants to use the PC, right? So she walks in. She does not touch anything because she has a one-track mind. She has one goal, which is to use the PC in order to find a suitable match. And that again does not indicate anything about their relationship, but as people who themselves are children, we might think, right, ki if I'm a careeristic woman and my mother still wants to get me married off to some dude from some whatever, then I might actually end up having strained relationships with her, because clearly I do not want to get married. But then that's another thing that is like a seventh eighth inference from the basic inference, which is that the mother does not care about what I care about, which is the last option, which is why I think I selected.
The person named T.
yeah, even I was referring to the same initial part that she referred कि वो room में जाती ही थी to see the newspaper and Windows PC, so it must not be that कि वो reminisce कर रही है the memories.
So does it not imply that she's indifferent to the artifacts in the daughter's room? Like you both are again said that she doesn't care about it. It basically means not that she's indifferent to, and like you also said, Cornelia, that how she's career oriented. So and the mother doesn't even care about like the all of the feminist women that and the posters that are in her room. She doesn't care about them. So does it not imply that she's indifferent towards it?
It does. But see, indifference, I'm sorry about my, but I'm getting passionate about this. But the thing is, it does insinuate that. Again, it does. That's why we are all agreeing that these are very close options.
Okay.
But then the first inference would be, I'm sorry, just one second. The first inference would be, Yaina, ki she's indifferent. And the second inference would be that they have a strained relationship because of the indifference.
Okay, a few more comments on this question, but I largely think we know that though both options come reasonably close to each other, it's not challenge worthy as such, and it's a matter of interpretation how you see it. Okay, Ashmit and Jyotika. If you guys still have a persisting, either you want to add a comment on the ongoing discussion or any persisting doubt, or
Uh,
should I?
right, sir.
Yeah, please.
Ashmita isn't saying anything. So I think if you are done with the discussion on this particular question, then I had a query about, I think, um, what the number is. I think it is 71, which is, I think somebody else also
I'll
raised
come
that
to
word.
it.
Okay, okay, sure.
Okay, I think for the time being, we'll close the lid on the discussion on question 67. I felt more like a moderator here, but that's a good thing. What does the above passage indicate about the role of marriage in a women's life in a Meshi society? Women strive to take charge of their conditions within traditional structures of marriage. In modern day societies, marriage is secondary to women's professional aspirations. A to me appeared a little straightforward here, and although I don't think A is very explicitly carved out in the passage, but so there is an option, right, which states, or sorry, a piece of information in the passage which states that there are some things which are negotiable and some things which are non-negotiable, and that though women may not personally have a preference towards such families which make all these laundry list of demands that they have from the soon to be bride, but nonetheless within that structure they work, and that they choose to go abroad and live a life there. I do not think the passage is indicating sufficiently enough that the women are going to take charge of their condition within traditional structure of marriage, but there is a slight indication in the passage that their decision to even go outside and make a living, or sorry, or to live a life outside that country is somewhere indicative of the fact that they make a decision for themselves, and within that traditional structure they look for their own aspirations. So that's why on a that hunch I feel that option A would be correct. Did anybody feel that neither of them are correct?
I felt.
Why?
Because A I actually associated with the mother actually. And B was basically there was not a mention of the fact that because that Umeshi is I think Umeshi is the
B, I
daughter's.
agree. B is not
हाँ
correct. I agree.
हाँ she is not looking for the ऐसा कुछ लिखा नहीं है कि that her professional aspirations are primary, her marriage options are secondary. That's why I marked D. And like A, I inferred it in the mother sense that she, I don't know what I inferred. Wait.
I'm sorry, why is the answer for 71A not C?
We are discussing 68.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just thought we're done. I'm sorry.
Can you explain why it should be A again? Because I didn't get it. Or like, can you point it out where is it mentioned in the passage?
Yeah. Let me refer to you the exact point in the passage. Clinging caste community, but she was willing to overlook this family arbitration exchange for promise. Go to this third last para, and but and start from there. But she was willing to overlook these families' outdated notions in exchange for promise. The great offer of exchange that all the personal advertisements rested on immigration, dual citizenship, bride and mother, a life abroad, overseas, elsewhere, but here. So within the traditional notion where your marriage is determined by caste, by your color, by your ethnicity, by your religion, you choose to go abroad. So that's somewhere I would call it that your decision or your autonomy to go outside and make a better life for yourself. So within the traditional notion of marriage, you are finding some kind of empowerment. Not empowerment would be the wrong word, but still.
I actually inferred it because Umeshi's mother was looking for a groom, no? So, and Umeshi wasn't even involved. So I thought this is a more like a traditional way. Like Umeshi's mother didn't even ask Umeshi. I think that's what I'm inferring that she has taken charge of finding a groom for her.
More asked or oriented more from the direction of society. In Umeshi society, how is the passage, or sorry, how in Umeshi society the marriage is seen in a woman's life?
Okay,
So it's
right,
a
right.
question directed more from a society point of view.
Okay.
Okay, 71. Option A, I agree that I did not find option A. My first guess probably would have been around option C only, because there is a permanent residency, so that is an incentive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Same, same,
I
yeah.
am then
No,
looking at
there is
the fact.
something they don't like Christians
Yes,
unless
yes,
they are
that's
not
what I'm looking
Christians.
at. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But then
No,
I
but
need to
the thing with
just
the
a minute, guys.
Christian thing is that the mother is willing to like overlook that and
Hmm.
sort of she sorry.
So just a minute.
Yeah, no, I think the Christian thing is not an issue. It's the PR thing. She wants a citizenship, not a PR.
Yeah, I think
So I
that's the
think
main point of the author. That's where they conclude by saying that the PR is the only thing that sort of matters to them. So I think she was also saying that she's ready to overlook it, which is why I think it should be C.
Yes, I agree, because I mean your
mm,
citizenship depends if you have a PR, right?
Yeah, exactly. And nothing else
Can't,
mentions the permanent citizenship
you
anywhere.
can't have a citizenship without having PR.
Yeah.
I agree. I was looking at a very specific part of this paragraph about this Christian only, as to what Umeshi's view is, in case if I've glossed over something. One had to be vigilant about fine print, divorced. So, of course, that goes out of the picture. Christian parents seek. But Umeshi had learned quickly that these proposals were all of a pattern reflecting a society's innate. Worst Christian parents seek, reflecting a large clinging to old feuds, and while the profession of right if a future spouse wanted to negotiate caste, community, and color were not, but she was willing to overlook these family's outdated notions in exchange for the promise, the great offer, the exchange. So I think the Christian parents, I do not find that there is a direct uh, view of Umeshi on religion as such. In this case, I think the Christian is mentioned that the parents or the other side of the groom is seeking all these things in a.
Apologies, but I think we are reading this pretty literally, and that is not how it should be read. This piece. I
I
mean,
think
there's
I'm reading it as is given in the passage. So, for instance, what I'm saying is that one had to be vigilant of the fine print, divorce after brief incompatible marriage, or even worse, Christian parents seek. I believe in this case, this is, or it very literally it means is that the family of the groom is what being referred to as. And
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think you should look at the last third from the last third line. She said that she's willing to overlook everything, but three
yeah,
things stand out for her: immigration, dual citizenship. I mean, PR is not necessarily citizenship, so I think it should eliminate C altogether.
No, but
No,
the
Simply,
no,
only
PR
way,
is.
the only way by which you would have
PR
citizenship
is
is,
not citizenship. PR just makes you eligible for citizenship.
but no
No,
other option makes.
okay, you speak.
I
Uh,
I just feel that no other option anywhere else makes you eligible for citizenship, and just because you live in Berlin or work in Berlin doesn't guarantee or necessitate the fact that you also have a prospect of living there.
I agree, but I think that C eliminates it quite explicitly.
no,
किसी
because
और में
huh, because
किसी और में मेंशन नहीं है, एम्बिगुअस है, एग्री था ए के अंदर,
I'll
बट
just
सी
go for
तो
Hemant's answer.
एलिमिनेट्स इट आई
Yeah.
थिंक. कि
but
अगर
like
सिटीजनशिप
PR,
होती तो वो पीआर क्यों लिखेगा, तो डायरेक्टली लिखता कि सिटीजनशिप है लंदन में.
PR is
yeah, true, true.
citizenship
If we go
only.
by the PR logic of citizenship का
just
difference, so then point true.
okay, please make sure that as one person is speaking, the other one doesn't interrupt. So, whoever was speaking, let them finish, then start with your take.
And like PR basically means that only because if for example there's this groom and he has a PR, then I would like to for example for Umeshi she would marry that guy so that she would get citizenship automatically. There's a clause, right, that if the spouse has PR, then the wife or the other spouse will automatically get citizenship. So that is the inference I got.
Yeah, and
I
that's
think
the
you are
only logic
mistaken on
on.
this.
I think the only logic that the mother is working on is that getting a guy who has citizenship, post which they both could probably leave the country, and that's the premise that it has. Yeah.
also the guy with PR is younger than the other guy, although the age is not a factor anywhere here. But I mean, it might just sort of help like
Right.
unconsciously or something like that.
I mean, at that point,
Hmm.
I did feel that they are testing the legal knowledge here कि आपको पता है PR और citizenship अलग है. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's how I thought.
Can I add my own reasoning? Just one last thing to this was that the reason why I did not select the Christian bit, like option C, is what we're confused about, right? So the reason why I did not select that was because even though there is an insinuation that, okay, overall people do not prefer people from other communities, especially religious communities. I mean, there's a line, right? God forbid it's a Christian man. But that being said, it just insinuates that that is something that in general is a problem. Even if she's willing to look over it for PR, it still is a big enough problem. And then, so the first option, option A, which they've given, it addresses that there's a person working in Berlin, agreed that there is no insinuation of any kind of PR, neither any kind of citizenship, which is the primary aim of the mother, understandable. But then there's an insinuation of wealth also, that he's drawing a six-figure salary, if I'm not wrong. So this person is making good money also. So I think that is what they're using. But then option C also looks very close. But the Christian bit is what got me to not choose it or choose against it, because again, I think she just simply doesn't want her daughter to marry into another community.
I agree with Sanya on this. I think option C has to be the correct one. That's my personal take, and it's based on two reasons. The one is, I think somebody has pointed out that the mother is willing to overlook everything. So the Christian bit in this case, even if let's say the other side of the family is a Christian family who has made all sorts of ridiculous demands, the mother is willing to overlook it. So that part is out of the picture for me within my limited interpretation of this passage. That being from a different religion is not a particularly bad thing, or she's willing to overlook, but at a certain cost. She is not willing to overlook just for anything, but for a certain cost, which is that. And I think all the things which are mentioned in the end of this paragraph are that everything is related to citizenship here, or perhaps a life abroad, which means that where is this? Outdated notions. Exchange for personal advertisement, immigration, dual citizenship for both mother and bride, a life abroad, overseas, or elsewhere. And option C is the only option which specifically mentions that the person with whom she might get married to has a permanent residency. Now, if you take the literal meaning of permanent residency, it does not step into legal domain. Permanent residency means that you're a citizen of that country. PR is that means that you can stay there. Or at least I'll take another look at it by looking at Google. But that's my read of it. That's what permanent residency
You
means.
can check. The PR
Check.
does not have any voting
You know,
rights nor no social security. Like it's just PR. You can stay there,
Visa,
work.
like it
so
helps you to get visa quickly and all. You don't have to take visa or something. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
your
I
citizenship can be fast tracked based on being PR,
hmm,
but
I
you
agree.
don't
I agree.
it's not
automatically
synonymous
become a
with
citizen.
I
citizenship.
agree. I
They're
was
different classes altogether.
okay. Okay. I think the Google also says that PR is a step, right, to obtain the citizenship. And the mother wants the citizenship, not just for herself, but also, sorry, not just for the bride, which is her daughter, but also for herself. So I think I agree with you. PR does not mean that they have citizenship.
Just to like clarify, but the thing is just this, that the only option that sort of satisfies a possible condition even for this person, because PR is still one step ahead, because the first option is just ambiguous in terms of like that person being employed. That doesn't guarantee even PR. So I think B option is still better off, because PR is still a first step in
Challenge it. Challenge this one. You
right.
can do that because although I don't think you'll be able to get C as the correct option because certainly C does not meet the criteria either, but you can definitely challenge it on the fact that option A is also ambiguous with respect to if he has any citizenship or not. So neither of the options in this case are fully satisfying the criteria that Umeshi has in her mind. I
Right.
think this one can be challenged.
But since they asked for most suitable match,
Yeah,
considering the above options,
Yeah, but as she said, it does not really indicate that it's the most suitable match. I mean, it says nothing about his employment state, or sorry, his citizenship status. And the mother does not seem to have any particular affinity towards how much salary you're drawing.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the passage is mother particularly attracted to someone as a prospective groom for a bride based on the fact that he is earning a lot of money. So the only thing which is making or which is the make or break deal in this case is your citizenship. And if I have to, please tell me your name, T. I don't like to refer to you again by
oh,
T,
I'm
but
sorry. Okay. I realized I've logged in with the alt account. I'm Anchit.
Anchit. Okay. So as Anchit mentioned that it's likely going to be the fact that PR also does not indicate. I think in US they are calling it a green card that you get. So PR may not exactly indicate that you have a citizenship either. So there's an ambiguity in this question. Based on an ambiguity, you can challenge it. One quick suggestion is that I remember back in the day when students used to challenge the DU answer key, they used to pool money. So in case if you want to challenge it, and I believe that 1,000 is a bit too much to really challenge one answer for anyone. So you can decide to pool money and then challenge it. That's an option.
Thank you.
Okay, if there is someone else who has any last comments on it, please.
I have doubts. The next question, actually, it's a dumb doubt of mine, but like, can you explain 72?
I
Ashok,
wanted to
before
say
you,
something about
yeah,
this
sure.
question. So before we move on, I think like one way of looking at C as being the right option is that if we zoom out a little bit and we think about the intent with which this passage seems to have been written, it is one of hope and aspiration. And the way in which the mom is looking at citizenship here is of a progressive nature, that eventually, dual citizenship will be something that both her and her daughter will be able to achieve. And if we think about PR similarly, it is also a path towards, greater access to at least rights in that country, citizenship eventually, and so on. So that might be a way in which we can think of, C being the closest to being the right answer here. So that's how I'm thinking of
As
it.
in when you will challenge it, they'll also ask you to give a brief explanation for why you think that C is the correct one. So just frame a explanation accordingly, as you've just told me right now, and I think it should give you sufficient grounds to challenge it.
So actually, I also looked up this 71 ka jo option D hai. It says Kandy, right? Kandy is a city in Sri Lanka only. So her mother is looking for immigration. That could be one of the reasons why this option would not be correct.
D, the confusion is between A and C. D is anyway not one of
Yeah,
the.
and but then the option B is the person like once divorced. C is like a Christian man, and like how the community and like is all about the social perspective, and they all not think about the Christians being a really good. So I think it's a very minute detail, but it feels like the only A option. Like I also chose like the C option itself, but I feel like if we now that we're looking at it very minutely, then the option A would be like the best choice out of it.
I have a fairly reasonable conviction that they might not allow the challenge. They might not, but it's worth challenging.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
I also think the same because
Are they
One
about
addition.
even
One
in
by
the
one.
question they've written ki most
Anchit,
eligible man,
Sanya, and
so
then
they have
Karnika.
sufficient discretion to put down the challenge.
Sanya.
I just wanted to ask about their attitude towards like accepting that there might be a fault, because DU doesn't do that. Like DU just says that deal with it. So what is their attitude towards this?
I think they're reasonably open to it.
So you think it's worth
They'll
challenging?
give a due consideration at least, even if they are like a little bit ignorant, but they'll give a due consideration. It will also depend on how good of an explanation you provide. So as you're challenging it, make sure that the bunch of you who have decided to challenge this one, you frame a really good explanation for why you think C is correct. Alternatively, why A does not meet the criteria, or there is a lack of clarity in option A and it's a slightly ambiguous option.
And just to follow up, in this case, does the question get cancelled or does the answer key change?
Everyone gets I think if they decide that the option C is the correct one, then yeah, they'll give updated answer key in which option C is indicated as the correct option.
Oh, fair. Thank you.
Oh, I have just one addition to it that I went through it again. And here the exact line that says, that goes is, one had to be vigilant about the fine print, of course, divorced after brief incompatible marriage, or even worse, Christian parents seek. But Umeshi had learned quickly that these proposals were all of a pattern, reflecting a society clinging to old feuds. While the profession or height of a future spouse may be negotiable, caste, community, and color were not. But she was willing to overlook these families' outdated notions. So she's willing to overlook the other families' outdated notions, right? So, for example, the other family might have an outdated notion about, something for for me as a prospective bride. So she's willing to. There's no insinuation around how she feels about a Christian family. She's willing to overlook the family's outdated notions. There's an apostrophe at the end of families, stating that the people that are sending this advertisement or putting out the advertisement, they have an outdated notion which she may or may not agree with, but there's no insinuation around how she feels about getting a daughter married into another community.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
And I had a very offbeat doubt about it. Like I did mark A, but how is one supposed to know that Candy in option D is in Sri Lanka?
I think you have to follow cricket for that.
Or just have a basic
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
geographical knowledge. But it's a matter of interpretation. I'm still a bit skeptical about option A still, because there is nothing indicated in that about a promise of citizenship in any manner, or that the person might have a citizenship. But I do agree with you, Carnelia, on that. This interpretation is fairly persuasive, that the only thing that she's willing to negotiate on perhaps could be the height of the spouse or the profession, but not the caste, community, and the color.
I just think the saving grace for this is that she's ready to let anything override, if only that it guarantees her and her daughter's citizenship, because the paragraph starts with that and it ends with that she hates it here and then she wants to move out.
But I'll still say that maybe the preceding two lines indicate that the realm of what she's willing to overlook is limited to just these things of the family's notions. Maybe the color or the caste or the community of that family is still something she's not willing to budge over. She still is very firm in what she thinks about it. So I think the final takeaway could be that it might make them reconsider it, but they might not change it. And that's the reason I said initially also, it's unlikely they'll change it, but it might make them reconsider it. You have to decide if you're willing to spend 1K over it to make them do that. I think it's unlikely they'll change it.
So I just this thing. I'm sorry, I'm just going back and forth with this, and it sounds horrible. But the thing is just this, that if you choose option A, then citizenship completely
Yeah,
goes on.
yeah. That's what I said to you. That in option A, there is that ambiguity. So what you can challenge is that option A is not correct.
Yeah, no,
You may
fair.
not be able to challenge it on the grounds that option C should be the correct one. Because if Carnelia's explanation is to go by, it's reasonable for the assessor also to give a similar explanation. And if they do, then if I am convinced by it, I think that majority of you would also be convinced by it. So I think your challenging grounds would be then that option A should not be the correct one.
Fair.
You do not comment over which one is correct, but option A is not correct.
Oh, okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sasanka, Shruti, Jay, and Jyotika. Okay. Shashanka isn't speaking anything. Shruti.
I have doubt in the next question.
Okay, we'll come to that. Jay.
I have doubt in question number 2.
Question number 2.
Yeah.
Jyotika.
Yeah, so you necessarily have to tell them what option you think is the right one. So I looked through the I looked at
You have to.
the portal. Yeah, I have it open right now. So they're asking you which question you have an issue with, which option you think is right, and a justification.
That really weakens your case, actually. You can give it a try, but I think it's unlikely then they'll change it. Because for DU, we remember we just had to tell them why the option A is not correct. So whichever option they have mentioned is not correct. So then what they used to do is, if you can prove that their option, which they have indicated in their answer key, is not correct, then they'll award everyone, whoever has taken the exam, that many marks, whichever that question was allocated. So everyone gets 1 mark. I don't know why they trust so much in their ability to frame questions here that they feel that one option has to be correct. It might weaken your case if they are asking you to indicate a correct option.
So you still don't think that we could probably push for C being a better option, if not the most appropriate option, just because the overarching theme happens to be moving out of the country?
It's worth giving a shot, but I just feel that they might put forward the same explanation that we had just discussed.
Makes sense. All right.
I had one thing about part B. Should I ask?
I think we'll just come on to part B in a few minutes now. It's been quite a while
Okay,
we've
sure.
been stuck on part A, but just a few more minutes. Okay, Jay, come back to question 2. Okay, this is the last one we are taking up on the part A. I think then I'll put some final concluding remarks on part A just broadly. Some of them we have already discussed, and then let's move to part B because I'm a little unclear on what all part B had. Question 2, you said. Which
Yeah,
was,
I have a confusion
yeah.
between options C and D because it's who thinks of the other as in which sense. That's why I had a confusion.
My doubt was also like 72.
Okay, 72. The leaflets, which should have not. In the passage, it's quite explicitly given. Anyone who contributes to a state of panic is playing into hands of enemy. Para.
Yeah, so Richard, rhetorically asks him that, am I contributing to it? And then in the subsequent questions, the subsequent back and forth, he says that I only know, said Richard, that you have to tell people the truth because they know it anyway. Trying them to feed them a lie is absurd. So it is implying that Ruboshow thinks, like Richard thinks that Ruboshow is thinking that Richard is telling a lie.
I think, but their initial thought as to why Rubashov thinks that Richard is playing into the hands of enemy was primarily because his leaflets contributed to a state of panic. His subsequent further explanation might have been because it's not giving the accurate information or it's showing something which might not be best suited for the party's benefit. But I feel that since his primary explanation is that it's causing a state of panic, I would prefer that option.
Okay.
Because the latter option is just an explanation of that.
Okay, sure.
Option 72. In the meanwhile, can we just start with the part B quickly? Because I'll also have to understand a few. So starting with what were the kind of questions that were asked you? Anyone who wants to start? And what were your essay questions like? And what was the nature of your part B questions like? How many of them were principle based? What was the approximate length? Were they easy to understand or not easy to understand? How many words did you write? And what did you think about your performance?
Can I go first?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I remember one passage pretty accurately. So the passage is there are two companies, and one is a LNG company, a natural gas company, and it is promising to provide the other company in a neighboring country with natural gas supplies. But the country which is supplying is in close proximity to another country which it does not have very good relations. And the LNG company itself is state-owned.
Acha, the Ludonia wala question.
Yeah,
Ludonia.
Ludonia wala, yeah.
Okay.
So now what happens is we know that the supplier and its next door neighbor are not having very good relationships, but the country to which it is supplying, it has a contract for supplying LNG to that. Okay, so the neighboring countries which have animosity, the question provided that there has been a history of it, that there was some animosity, and then in some particular month, suppose November, tensions flared up, and all the regional strategists, political strategists, they were concerned that it might disrupt oil supply and everything. So the supplier assures the other party of the contract that don't worry, I have got alternative supplies, and I have everything thought after, or arranged for. So you do not need to think about it. We have alternatives to it. But what happens is then eventually war breaks out, and both the neighboring countries engage into war, and the neighboring country attacks the supplier, and it destroys its supplies. And now the cost rises almost sevenfold of supplying LNG to it. So the other party in the contract drags him to court, and he says that I want to sue him for damages. is it challengeable or is it valid? So that was one question I pretty much
Okay.
summarized. If
Noted.
anyone has any, chip ins to it, or if they might disagree in their interpretation, they could.
I think this is a typical question of, if you remember in one of your explanations to an answer key, there was a concept of force majeure, if anybody remembers.
Yeah.
Uh,
There was one.
Typically, it means that if you're free to not perform a contract if certain conditions occur which make the performance of a contract impossible or almost difficult to perform, that you cannot reasonably expect that party to fulfill their obligations under that contract. So I think it's a typical that kind of questions. If you had to argue in favor of that company, you would typically say that it's, I believe, physically impossible for them, which also implies contractually impossible for them to fulfill their obligations. Their past promises were based on a different set of circumstances. So, in the current state of events or the situation, they cannot perform that. I think if you mentioned that, it means that you've built a good answer. Yeah, we have Anchit, Sanya.
Yeah, so I think they made a case for the other side considerably well, and went for the other side. They indicated that a particular year that they had a fight in, and then they indicated that it was not that they could not physically provide, it was that they were asking for a higher price, that we would provide you, but you have to pay like 4x or 5x.
Okay,
And
okay.
also, they also specified a particular point that just before the war, when there was just a missile that fell upon their land, they went by themselves and they assured them ki sab theek hai, we have sufficient adequate other options, and you don't need to worry about it. So I thought that there was an implicit understanding ki they left the second party hanging, ki they couldn't have any alternate options. So
Hmm.
I argued against them that they are liable to be sued and they have to accrue some compensation to the other party.
So basically, they did not refuse to supply. They basically said, we'll supply, but at a higher cost, right?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
and through other some other country.
No, like there was actually a point where the
No,
expert
no, no.
also mentioned that there could be more that they predicted that the war would take place. Number one, number two, the higher cost was mentioned. Then uske aage it was written that ki still they were not sure that they'll be able to supply the LNG or not. So that these two points were enough, like among other points, that the other party, the Farenko, the party were that they
I'd
are liable to sue the other party. That's
I
why
would
I
like to
argued on their favor.
I'd like to add on कि उन्होंने बोला था कि they would supply at a higher side, but जो far anko है they would not be able to ensure कि वो supplies अपने vendors को दे पाएं. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि जो supplying party है वो नहीं दे पा रही है, वो रिसीव करने के बाद भी कुछ कर नहीं पा रहे हैं. तो आई थॉट कि वो फारेंको का केस और ज्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग कर दिया उसने.
That's fine. I'm not going to, because this is part B, so it's likely not the case that I'll be judging to what extent have you correctly argued, because if you are so specifically correct or accurate on your details, it probably means that you have read them to a good amount of accuracy, and whatever you argued was based upon these facts. If your arguments are based on the facts given in the question, you have made good arguments. That is the most important bit. So whichever side you've argued, that's completely fine. No need to discuss too much in part B, thankfully, because so long as it's stemming from the facts of the situation and if being able to reasonably argue them, I think it's a good enough answer. Anyone else wants to chip in on this question? Sasanka?
I would like to, I like a question in general is that we got a lot of decide questions. How would you particularly decide in this case? So in
Uh-huh.
decide questions, we choose a side and we write down the reasoning that why would we decide in their favor.
Yeah,
Uh, do we provide counter arguments or in that, do we argue the other side also in that?
you're expected to. You're expected that you address the other side's arguments and tell why have you not decided in their favor, or why did you not feel their arguments are do not deserve as much consideration as the arguments from the side in whose favor have you decided. So a small or a brief engagement with other side's arguments is expected from you.
Okay, so mostly what I did was that I only argued in favor of one party, that I would decide in their favor, then I delineated my reasoning through firstly, secondly, and lastly in that manner. But I did not go into detail of the arguments of the other party because lack of time and space also. So I don't know if
It's
I'd lose
okay.
a lots of marks there.
That's fine. That's fine. I think it's expected from you means that if you do it, you'll get extra marks. If you don't do it, it's likely not the case that you'll be heavily penalized for it. They'll still award you marks for the extent of answers or reasoning you have displayed in your answer. But of course, if you do engage with counter arguments, it will definitely add more to your marks. So I think that's the difference. All right. Anyone else? That's one question we are done with. What
Acha,
about the other
I would
question?
like I would
Sorry.
just like to ask others if anyone can expand on the Dr. Kraft and her excavation and permit question. I just can light on the facts in that.
That question is actually really similar in like the base is very similar to the example question we got from NLS from the sample paper.
Was it?
Yeah, the basis was actually really same. Like we had a code, and what happened in the case was there was an archaeologist, and there was some act, and according to that, you were not supposed to do any excavation or anything, but she did in the name of research, and she wanted a full permit for excavation.
Yeah, the three words which they
She
used
did
was
not.
excavation, exploration, mapping.
Yes.
And then
Also
they said,
surveying.
and surveying, yes, and surveying. So they said that she had mapped it using non-invasive techniques, and she for her research grant and research purposes to ensure or to promote for a full exploration or an excavation. And the state has now dragged her to court. So I don't remember, was it decide in favor of someone or was it just decide the case generally?
I think they asked
No, it
whether
was
she should be
mostly
held
guilty.
criminally liable under the act
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they brought.
Okay, okay, okay.
But also, I think the act was in the background of people recently stealing archaeological, like looting from archaeological sites, etc. And then the argument was also, in the end, they just mentioned that she pleaded that she was trying to conserve this particular site, which would otherwise have not either gone down or, like, let's say, be looted by the people. So that was also something.
She was a
Yeah, the purpose of the act also comes into play. Yeah.
Another very important fact in that particular case was that whether or not she asked for the permit. Right. So she did not ask. That was clearly stated that she did not ask for a permit, and the legislation clearly stated that you must. मतलब ये नहीं था कि you must seek permission, but it was like you have to under it you have to like attain permission. She did not attain permission, and then if she does not do that and she claims that her technology was non-invasive, okay, in the sense that she did not like visit the site, she did it all online, yada yada, but simply the fact that she did not, and then she also released her research online for everyone to see. Now that could very easily get a lot of people to go and then steal, because now they have additional information, right? And this information, the release of this information and her conduction of like the entire because I pleaded again, like I pled against her. So yeah, just whether or not she attained permission is, I think, a very essential factor.
Okay.
Also to add that the legislation was quite overarching in nature, that it did not specify कि invasive है या non-invasive है, तो it weakened her case significantly.
I feel that given the depth of your discussion, you all have been able to read the questions really carefully. That's all we also expected from you, that if you've shown some analytical insight in the question, and if you've been able to similarly emulate that in your answer, it's a great thing. I mean, I'm sitting like a duck here because I don't understand anything you're saying. I have no idea of questions. It feels really weird, but I can only just make a sense that you all are making some very insightful discussion. Anyways, a few quick things now. Can
We
you,
all learned from the best, Hemant.
sorry?
We all learned from the best.
In
Touche,
case, what
touche.
were the themes of other question? If you can just quickly tell me. I just want to know the themes. That's all.
I remember
There
one
was one.
question.
एक करके.
There was
Shruti.
one rule. There was one rule-based question. I think there were two rule-based questions.
True.
One was a treaty one. So basically, one question was कि though there was two countries. I only remember vaguely. They signed a treaty in which there was a foreign direct investment का treaty था. So the other country set up their burger business in the country B's. Country B के इसमें they set up a business. and it was a burger business, and it became like very famous, and it was like one of the top burger chains in that country. But in the treaty there was a clause that it's called expropriation clause. So like how am I supposed to explain? So it just said that the country B cannot tell the country A's business to close it down until and unless there's a clause that if it is for public concern. I don't remember that word, public concern, that if it is affecting the public, then only you can remove it. But वो बहुत ऐसे vaguely लिखा था, so if one would read the rule properly, then they would understand. So what happened? The country B conducted some surveys and all, and it came to know that because of the burger consumption, life expectancy of youngsters will reduce. So what they said that abhi burgers will have to be packed in a less attractive packaging, and they also have to mention what are the harmful substances, what are the substances that are in their burger. So now country A का जो burger chain है, they said that this is expropriation का वो violation है, जबकि नहीं है, because the country B was only trying to protect its citizens. So this is a rule-based question. Other one was second question was on this IPC जैसा ही है कि if in an act of defense this for example somebody harms somebody, and in an act of defense they again harm the other person, then this does not amount to criminal liability. And then until that is what the clause was. But this there was this woman called Miss Singh, I think, and she was trying to tell the media people and everyone that there's this critical flaw in the cybersecurity system of the country's emergency system. Country city, and so she tried telling them, and nobody heard her, nobody cared about her. So what she did, she hacked into the cybersecurity system of that emergency care system, and she put out a false fire alarm, due to which all these ambulance, police, everyone, they started there was a state of panic, and they went towards that location where she put a fake fire alarm. In that process, an ambulance, there's an accident that happens, and a motorcycle and a motorcyclist gets injured in this process. So now they're asking us, will Miss Singh now they're saying that Miss Singh will be liable in this case. But she was like, no, I'm only trying to tell the people that there's a flaw in the cyber security system. So now you decide. This is one of the two questions.
Okay.
I remember one question. It was quite funny. There were two celebrities and they had a falling out. And so a gossip magazine reported on unconfirmed rumors that they have had a falling out. And so this one celebrity makes a rhyme in which she says that you stabbed behind my back, et tu brute, et tu brute. And the second person sues her that you have defamed me. So you have to decide.
Case, some details were first a gossip magazine published an insinuous piece from unconfirmed sources saying that two people, like two friends, had a fight and one backstabbed and got a contract or something. And after a month of this article being published, the one of the person came out with the song. So the other person feels hurt like she being my friend came up with the song, and that too within a small period of time of that article. So like, is the other person wrong or not? So an article and a song coming in very close thing. Yeah.
And the song also mentioned about betrayal, and Julius Caesar ka bhi ek mention
The song
tha.
was really good. You had to read it all to get the sense. Really nice song.
I'm glad the problems were good. Last year, a lot of students said that the problems were a bore to read. So I'm happy that the problems were interesting, because if a problem is interesting, also it tends to. I have seen that a lot of students tend to write better if a problem gauges your interest really well. Carnelia.
So I just had one question, which was exactly this, that because of a very sheer paucity of time, I was not able to write one entire attempt, one entire 10 marker. I wrote my essay, one 10 marker first, then an essay, and then like 4 questions after that. The fourth question, so in the last 3 minutes, I had 2 10 markers to write. So I wrote one 10 marker, this case, archaeologist case. So basically, point being, do you think, I just wanted to know in general from everybody, did people have trouble finishing the paper, or was everybody able to finish the paper?
No, I had a problem in finishing.
I wanted to ask this only now, just a brief show of hands who was able to reasonably mention, or sorry, reasonably attempt all the questions in part B? Just a show of hands. Just two people we have.
I
Nice.
wouldn't say reasonably because I messed up my essay, I think.
By reasonably, I mean that at least 150 words per answer, including essay also.
I filled the sheets, but I thought that I could have done better at
I'm not
making
going towards
some.
quality. That's fine. Your quality and all is subjective. I can't determine that. Just were you able to write at least 150 words on every answer, including essay as well? Okay. No, because I'm just asking that to see that how long or lengthy the paper was. Okay.
Each of the passages were around half page long.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Not the passage, like the problems, all of the passages were pretty long, and they had lot of information on which you could argue for both sides. So I think naturally you would always support something, counteract something. So it was pretty long to even get a gist of it.
And I can understand that. It'll
I
take
think that
some time, a few reads to understand. And how many words did you write per question on an average? Like, so a show of hands for those who were able to write 200 words and above.
If they finish or if they don't.
Irrespective of whether you finished or not. At least you should have been able to attempt at least 4 questions. Quite a few people. That's a good thing. Because I'm assuming that given since you all practice so much, it's not a much of a concern for me in terms of quality. I do think most of you would have pointed out towards the correct things, so I'm not that bothered by that. I just want to see if you were able to cover enough material in your answers. And was there anyone who was able to write even more than that, somewhere around 250 or 300 words for even any question? Okay. Sanya and Nehal, have you both written all the answer and have you also written more than 200 and 250 words?
Yes.
Not in all answers. Like, I'm not sure of one answer, but yeah.
Impressive. Good. Okay, I just wanted to see that only. Now, finally concluding remarks. Before, if you want to ask anything about, because now the exam is done, if you want to ask anything about college and all, I'll be happy to take any questions. I feel that last year again, the cutoff was around 90. I remember one person having 94 marks. It was a girl, did not come from any reserved category, vertically, horizontally. No, sorry, horizontally the reservation applied. They scored about 94, but they did not get in. This is last year. So I think the cutoff for the general category last time around was, I think, 96 or 97 is my guess last time around. I think, yeah, 96, right? That was the cutoff. You got 97, Sanya.
Yeah, I didn't get in.
Oh, wow. Then perhaps it looks to me that the cutoff was more than 100.
Was 100 and 100.5 actually.
105.
Yeah, as far as I could survey.
You know anyone who scored 105 and didn't get in?
No, not some. 100.5 was, I think, somebody I know from my batch who got in. Me and another girl from my college. I think we both got 97.25, but we didn't get in.
So 100 was around the mark, I believe, where the cutoff was then last year.
Yeah,
Similar
yeah,
to Party.
100.5 actually, to be precise. Yes.
Okay, okay. This year, due to the dip in party, probably the cutoff should be around 95. Somewhere around 95 is my guess. But with part B added in, it's a little unpredictable, but 95 should be the mark. There should be at least a dip of 4 to 5 marks due to a slight increase in the difficulty level of the paper. Now for the party as well, just a brief show of hands, whoever has scored above 60. $55 and above. $55 and above means reasonably you'll clear your part A. 60 means that even if you have not done the brightest in your part B, you will be able to make up for the marks through your part A. So that's a good thing. And 50 and above? This is for part A only. Okay.
I have one question, just one little question. Can I say it?
Yeah.
Will they check the essay if uske pehle a couple of pages are missing in the sense that somebody is not written a whole answer? Will they still flip the page to the essay?
I think they will. They'll check your entire sheet.
They will, right? So if there are missing
मार्किंग
questions,
तो वैसे भी लास्ट पेज में देना है ना, so they will flip it anyway.
oh,
That we wouldn't know, but I think they'll make sure to check all the pages.
There are place for marks in the last page
There are?
for the subjective question. हाँ.
Okay,
So they will
then
flip it through anyway. They'll
okay,
see.
makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, that's all from my end. I think with cutoffs and all, I can never really predict. I don't have that much experience, and neither has this exam been going on for that long that we can predict cutoffs. But if you are scoring 60 and above in part A, it's very comfortable for you. 55 and above, again, very comfortable for you. May have to score a little more in part B to maybe make a confirmed sure shot. 50 and above also, I think you'll get your part B evaluated. Again, might have to make up for your marks with your part B scores. And 45 and 50, let's hope for the best. I think the cutoff certainly should dip a little below, but we can hope for the best with the question paper being a little difficult. Jay and Sanya.
So, like for part A, since you have discussed it, what do you think should a part B score look like? Considering that you don't know how others have performed, but from the questions which were asked or your gut instinct.
45, I would say. At least you should try 45.
Okay.
Because last year the toppers marks were 117, 117. I believe Ajay took a session with you all, right? Ajay was one of the people we invited to speak to you. He was the topper last year, as far as I remember. So there was not a huge difference between the topper and the last person who qualified. Okay, so that's about the figures we can predict. Rest, let's leave for the results to come. Any question now you have towards me for college and anything? I've already missed my dinner, so I'll take your questions.
Just one. Do you think that they would get out a second list this time? Because they literally left out like 40 seats last year. And this time they also have 10 seats for international students. Just wanted to get an idea.
Unlikely. They don't have a second list in CLAT also.
Oh, okay. Fair. Thank you.
Why are they leaving out seats anyway? Any idea?
I think last year, one thing there was this gray area where they had mentioned that there has to be a minimum percentile in both part A and part B, but they never really specified what that percentile means. They said that even to be eligible to have your sheets checked, and then first 75 percentile in part A, then in part B 75 percentile, then collectively also 75 percentile. What the collective 75 percentile meant was a little ambiguous, because as per that, you can even get just 20 people in college if you don't meet that criteria. So that cumulative 75 percentile was a bit ambiguous thing they used. Your batch, or at least the LLB 3 year, is lucky. What they did with MPP course, which is also a course on NLSIU, they only took 25 students as opposed to 75 sanctioned seats. So our vice chancellor, I don't know, or whoever was in charge of deciding the number of students, the process was not very clear. But this year they've removed that cap. So let's see. I'm hopeful they'll take 120. Also, because they're undergoing a lot of expansion plans, college does not have too much space at the moment because there's a lot of construction going on. Who knows, they might have made that decision based on that. All speculation. I can't confirm or at least attest to any such reason as to why they did that.
The 75 percentile criteria remains, no, this year?
That criteria is one they can use legally to defend that why they only took 80 students. If somebody were to challenge it. Jay, Carnelian, Nehal.
So, about your college itself, like, why do you think that maybe it's not a very great college and you have repeated it maybe twice or thrice?
That was just.
Was it just?
Yeah, it's a great place to be. Academically, you have plenty of opportunities. It's flourishing right now, academically, if I'm speaking. Job wise and all, that's a separate discussion to have. But if you are just here to study law, to learn about law, it's flourishing, the colleges, because they've been hiring a lot. There are lots of teachers in the college. The vice chancellor at the moment has focused a lot on making sure that there is a abundance of teachers on the campus, especially with great experience. So academically, the college is flourishing right now. There are no two doubts about it. It's a bit strenuous place to be in. The first year, especially when you get in, if you're not used to a very rigorous academic schedule, it might take you a little by the wind, because it certainly comes with its own demanding requirements. Trust me, the most difficult part about this college is not the preparation you just did, it's the fact when you come here. So it's just a demanding, it's a great place to be in. By no means I would say that NLS is not a good place to be. Who likes their own college? I've never met someone who loves their college. Carnelia?
Just one question, that for 3 years to 3-year LLB students, are they equally a part of the mooting activities in other societies?
Everything.
Equally.
Everything that happens on campus, you'll find equal participation.
Okay,
Whatever
so
you can think of in your mind.
Okay.
Nihal?
So I was asking like by when we can expect the results.
Expect?
Results.
I think they said May, right? So
Okay.
ideally they should publish it within the first or second week of May.
Okay, thank you.
This is March, April, May. Yeah, I think roughly a wait of 1.5 months.
Like, how do they publish the results? As in, like a list? Does a list come out, or like via some?
Individually, they'll inform you on your portal. They'll mention your marks and they'll tell you if you've been offered any admission. There is no list.
Okay. Okay.
Any other question?
Do you have water problems there right now?
Not at the moment. They've assured us there isn't any problem. But let's see, Bangalore is definitely going through a crisis. By the time you guys have or get that mission, I don't think that'll be a problem. Okay, I believe then it's time to wrap up things. It's goodbye from us. I believe those who do clear the exam you'll be seeing us on the campus. So in a different role, in a different position. So certainly we'll be happy to see as many of you as possible on the campus. It would be very happy to see some of you who have worked so hard all across the year and across the months to clear this exam. So for sure, we would want to see as many of you as possible on this campus. And it's a great thing over there. The positions and the roles will be a little different, but again, we'll always be there to help you out on the campus, this time free of any fees or any costs. So as friends, perhaps we'll be meeting again if you all clear the exam. So certainly looking forward to see you all on the campus. And is there a question on this, Anshul?
I'm not sure, but I read somewhere and there was this fuss about the third year cohort not getting enough internships. What's the scene like?
There is no such thing as that. Internships largely depend upon whoever is your recruitment cell. They reach out to firms and the firms reply accordingly. So based on this last month, my batch did corporate internships. Almost anyone who wanted a corporate internship got one. So definitely in that manner, there is no such problem as that. I think the mostly people say based on the corp internships, but you do get them. They are not such difficult things to get. They're given equal opportunities, but it also comes down to how well your recruitment cell is. All right.
Just one last question. You talked about the topper who was 117. By any chance, do you know how much he scored in part A and part B?
I think Ajay scored about 60, 63, 64. I think somewhere around 65 only, I think his score was. I
In
don't
part
remember.
A?
In part A.
Okay. Got it. And was he able to complete the entire paper?
Yep, he was.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Anish is on the call as well, so it's time for us to say our final byes. So thank you all for once again being with us on this platform. We are still in a very growing platform. By no means we have scaled as much. So, but within our limited constraints and resources, whatever we could muster for you, we have provided the best to you within our limited abilities, and we wish to improve as much as we can over the months and years. So thank you all for trusting us again. All we can hope is that we've been able to live up to your trust and faith that you have reposed in us. And for sure, please do write to us. Don't feel any hesitation. You've all been speaking to us as your friends. I don't think there is much of a mentor-mentee relationship anymore. It's all being between a bunch of individuals. So feel free to give your honest feedback. Anish and I would both be happy to hear that. And over the months, we would be making many more changes to the way in which we have been uh, putting our platform to the people and our resources. We would definitely want to improve over them. So that's our hopes from our end. Anish, if you want to say something.
No, bro. Go ahead. You can wrap up the session. I just joined to check whether you have ended the session or not. Wanted to put the analysis video on YouTube.
Okay. All right. Thank you all once again. Again, I'm very hopeful to see you as many of you on campus as possible. Anish would be happy to give you all a treat, whoever clears this exam. So take that as a promise from Anish now.
Yes, guys, sure. We went out for a treat yesterday also, and we look forward to treating you when you make it to
Whoever
NLS.
clears this exam, you'll be treated to the finest food and liquor in Bangalore if you drink from Anish's side. So that's all we can promise because we're a bunch of students. We have nothing better to promise you. Anyways, guys, thank you all. With
Yeah.
this, we conclude this session. We'll keep you updated with any uh, updates we get from analysis side on the results and anything. And if in case you do get, I think you'll get the best updates because they usually update you on the emails. So do keep us in loop with those as well. And whenever the results come, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to inform you of any other things you may need before you come on the campus. So in between, it's not that you can't text us. Feel free to text us if you have any doubts in between as well. We'll be happy to reply as and when we get time. So thank you all. This is the last time. I'll be concluding the meeting now, and do write to us for the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.